Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Yater Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, the Forward Corporation, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Hammond Drives and Equipment, Garber Chevrolet, the West Branch Visitors Bureau, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine radio show. Charlie, if you don't mind, when you get a chance, bump the level of those phones up. I dealt with this last week, too. I usually have the headphone level set perfectly. Sometimes during the course of the week, things get a little bit askew here in the studio, and I think that's what happened this week. In fact, I bet I know what happened. Last week we had that phone problem, and the guys were going through the system, and I'll bet you that's one of the things they tweaked. And that's why. But the phones are perfect this week, from what I understand. Young John Dent, as I'm going to continue to call him, young Jonathan Dent, until the guy's about 40 years old, and by then I'll be, well, I don't know if I'll be gone or just off the air. I don't know that yet. Anyway, welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine radio show right here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on more than 30 radio stations across our great state of Michigan. It's not officially summertime yet, is it? The calendar doesn't say so. But we do have the Memorial Weekend behind us, which means unofficially we are now in the summertime season. A lot of the kids are done with school now. I went to a high school graduation for two of my grandkids last week, Addison and Carter. So it's basically the summertime season, right? And I feel like now finally, as we get ready to jump into the month of June, it might even be June, depending on when you listen to this show, can we hope that weather pattern that was plaguing us earlier in the spring is now behind us? And by that I mean cold. Again, we were at a ball game last week dressed in our winter clothes, and those northeast winds. What is it? What has it been about springtime that has brought those northeast winds consistently this spring? I feel like maybe that weather pattern has broken, and maybe we're going to be into more stable, warmer, lighter southwest winds. Let's hope so. You know, we talk about the weather, we gripe about the weather, we complain about the weather, but there's not a darn thing we can do about it, right? The old adage, everybody talks about the weather, but nobody does anything about it. If we could, we would. Here in Michigan, turkey season ends this weekend and Saturday. Did you get your bird? I have a lot of pictures of, not a lot, several pictures of people who connected with their bird this last week. Now, I used to joke about the mosquito season when it comes to Michigan turkey hunting, and the fact that I love to be out there. The opening weekend back in April, third Saturday in April, whatever it is, and it's a different world back then. But I have grudgingly come to become a big believer in the mosquito season too. In fact, we got Trent's bird last week during the mosquito season. So did you get your bird? Did you apply for your Michigan bear or your Michigan elk tag? That is open through this weekend. Now, I did not apply for a Michigan bear tag. Avery, did you miss the deadline? Nope, I remembered, but I applied for a point only. I did apply for a Michigan bull elk tag. I know. By applying for a bull-only tag, I significantly decreased my odds of getting a tag. I know it. I'll never get a Michigan bull elk tag. unless I win the Pure Michigan hunt, that is. That's how it's going to happen. So I applied for a bull elk tag, and I applied for a point only for my Michigan bear tag, because I did get a bear tag last year. Hunted with Johnny Bowler, the bear whisperer. And just now wrapping up the bear brats that are in the freezer. In fact, I talked with, again, young John Dent, and he pulled out his bear brats I had given him for Memorial Weekend, and he said they were outstanding. So I plan to go back to White River, Ontario, Canada in mid-August to bear hunt once again. So no Michigan bear tag this year. At least I did not apply for one, so I won't get one. Okay, the status on the Rapid River knife, the Avery signature version, the Mike Avery signature version of the Rapid River knife. I'm so excited about this. I talked with Chris Durson yesterday, and they were pouring the acrylic yesterday, so I should see what that looks like today. We're trying to get just the perfect bright blood red color. There's a reason I'm looking for that specific color. Chris is all in on this. Chris Durson of Rapid River. When he found out what I had in my brain, he said, Mike, we will of course work with you. And so what this is going to be, and I don't know if we'll be able to see that by this weekend yet, it's a Rapid River Uper pocket clip foldable knife. The handle will be blood red acrylic with burl maple or maple burl, depending on how you want to say it. That combination of handle is going to look beautiful. The blade will have my signature on it. And the proceeds from this will go to a group called Outdoor Driven. That is a Michigan-based group that deals with veterans and first responders, getting them in the outdoors. What more could I ask for? If I'm going to be involved in a charity, it's going to be outdoor related, veterans related, and this hits all cylinders. The promo code Avery15, Avery15, will not work on this knife for obvious reasons. We don't want to take 15% off the top of this thing because that's where the proceeds for Outdoor Driven will come from. I don't know when this will be available yet, but it's going to be soon. I can tell you, though, speaking of charities and outdoor events, the second annual Mike Avery Outdoors Charity Golf Outing it's coming at us. It's coming at us fast. It will be Friday, July 25th at the beautiful West Branch Country Club in beautiful West Branch, Michigan, in beautiful Ogemaw County. Proceeds from that event are going to MUCC's youth camp to get kids involved in the outdoors. Again, if I'm going to be involved in a charity, it's going to be outdoor related. MUCC.org/golf if you would like to sign up. MUCC.org/golf. We will fill up the event this year. I'd love to see you there. I would love to see you be a part of it. MUCC.org/golf. I am so excited for that event. I am so excited to see what this Mike Avery signature knife looks like. Now, Chris Durson said, Avery, what we should do, because Chris is a pretty forward-thinking guy, and if you go to his shop in Rapid River on US 2, just east of Rapid River, you'll see what I'm talking about. He said, I think there should be a whole series of Mike Avery signature knives. And I said, Chris, let's walk before we run. So let's go with one knife first and see how that turns out and see what the interest in that is. But I'm convinced it's going to be a very, very popular knife. Okay, what else? Amy Trotter of MUCC, as you're hearing the broadcast version of this show, she joined me last week for Wednesday Night Live. She's always a very popular guest. Love to have Amy on there. She's so smooth, and she is so well-versed and so educated and in tune and in touch with the outdoors here in Michigan. That's why one of the reasons why I partner with MUCC. Again, on the golf outing and more. If you would like to be a part of the second annual Mike Avery Outdoors Charity Golf Outing, the way to sign up, Go to mucc.org/golf, mucc.org/golf. Coming up on this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show after the upcoming break, Seth Herbst joins me from the Michigan Bowfishing Association to talk about, you guessed it, bow fishing, a big event coming up, and their efforts to get kids involved in the sport of bow fishing. You know I'm going to support that. Then Ashley Lister of Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union has stepped up the Security Credit Union Foundation to become the top dog sponsor for this year's golf outing. I want to publicly thank her for that, and talk about Security Credit Union, how they love to work with outdoorsmen and women. In our second hour, Joe Bednar on pike fishing here in Michigan. Joe is a hardcore pike angler. He will talk about that. And then Seth Herbst from the Michigan DNR talking about a very interesting walleye derby tournament. I don't know how you would phrase this, but it's an event that it's a 6-week derby. Seth will have more on that. And then John Upp from River Raisin Ballistics talks about the 41 Great Lakes cartridge. That's this week's Ask Avery segment. And in hour number 3, Ed Retherford, the longtime Northern Lake Huron charter captain from Trout Scout Charters, joins me. And, of course, we will wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. That's all coming up this week right here on Outdoor Magazine. I am so glad you're with us. Stick around. It's going to be another good show. You can hear the Outdoors Magazine show on more than 30 radio stations across our great state of Michigan, including WZTK in Alpena. That's 105.7 FM. You can hear us in Lansing on WILS 1320 AM. And north of the bridge in Iron Mountain, WMIQ 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination, your Mid-Michigan Angler Quest headquarters, and so much more. That's a beautiful facility with great people and a great spot. Located, if you go to Linwood Beach or Linwood Road, go to the end and turn right, you'll find Linwood Beach Marina. Linwood Beach will be the home for the Walleye for Warriors event coming up here very soon. Also the home of the annual Angler Quest Owners Tournament. And if you're interested in bow fishing, Linwood Beach is a great place to jump off in Saginaw Bay as well. The website, linwoodbeachmarina.com, linwoodbeachmarina.com. Now, I mentioned bow fishing because that is the topic now here on the Outdoor Magazine show. Jesse Hurst is the president of the Michigan Bowfishing Association, the Bowfishing Association of Michigan. Their website, bowfishbam.com, bowfishbam.com. Jesse's with us on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. And Jesse, before I forget, we got to give a shout out to your employer, your boss, for letting you take a few minutes to talk with me. Who is that?
Good morning, Mike. I'm working with Jeff Rob's Construction out of Laingsburg, Michigan.
Well, thank you. There. Now we're off the hook and we can talk. Jesse, I appreciate you joining me. What you're doing with the Bowfishing Association of Michigan to promote that sport is very cool and very impressive.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. We're trying to do all we can to get the word out and trying to keep a positive spotlight on the bowfishing for ourselves. And we got to try to clean the waters up the best way we know how, and that it's a fun time. You know, it's cheap, it's easy. As long as people take care of the fish, we're good to go.
Bow fishing is it's a cool sport because it's kind of a cross between fishing and hunting. Tell me more about that side of the topic here.
Yeah, I mean, you can get into it with just an old hunting bow. Some of the kids may want to use a bow that's, over 20 pounds, that they at least get some little penetration to hold on to the fish. There's lots of different setups, but I mean, you can buy yard sale bows. You can buy, pretty expensive bows, depending on how serious you want to get. A lot of times kids use spears too. It's a lot easier. They can't pull the bow back. The spear's a little more easier for them to kind of drop on them off a boat or up the dock or even offshore if you get some fish up close. But there's lots of options for sure.
Well, you talk about kids. We mentioned kids a couple of times already. Bow fishing is a great sport for kids, and you guys are doing your best to get kids involved in this sport, right?
Yes. Each year we try to do our annual youth tournament. This last one was this last weekend in Bay City State Park, which will be which next year will be the same location. It's a Saturday Memorial Weekend. We actually each year keep gaining more kids, which is awesome. Get more interest. We keep bringing our boats out to help get them on the water. But we actually had 98 kids this event.
Oh, nice. And this weekend, as folks are listening to the broadcast version of the show, you've got a big event going on.
Yeah, this weekend out of Caseville, BAM is helping guest host the Great Lakes Bowfishing Championship, the GLBC. That's out of Caseville. It's a 2-day day shoot, total weight event, 2-man teams, and we go out there and shoot all the rough fish you can bring. You bring them back in. There's your total weight for each day. There's big fish prizes for all the different fish we shoot. And then I think the local community, they're all donating money into a fish pot for the big fish. So there's lots of ways to win some money and have fun, and it should be a great time because the spawn's lining up about almost perfect with our event. We'll see how it goes with the weather and everything.
Well, weather does play a big role in so many things we do in the outdoors, but in bow fishing in particular, because you're in there in those shallow waters. Tell me more about that. What role does the weather play for you guys specifically, Jesse?
I mean, depending on the how overcast it is, it makes it harder to see them. Obviously, they're going to want a little bit more warmer water, but if it gets too hot, they're not in the too shallow. They go a little deeper. But when the time's right and they start spawning, especially the carp, you can obviously see them and hear them about everywhere when it gets up shallow. But yeah, you can weight them. You can get in little rowboats, canoes, whatever you got to do to get on them. The biggest thing we try to push, though, and that's all fun and games, but the biggest thing we don't want with a black eye for our sport is dumping fish on the boat launches or by the dumpsters on the launches or in the private property ditches or whatever. The biggest thing, you got to have the plan ahead and have a spot for your fish before you go out.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up. We used to call the sport carp shooting, and a lot of people do still call it carp shooting, but it's open to so much more. But let's talk about this, the public relations side of carp shooting or bow fishing. What do you guys do with these fish, Jesse? Because if there is one negative thing that comes out about the sport, and I don't think it's valid, but people say, well, why do you shoot those fish and then just throw them away? But it's more than that, isn't it?
Yeah, some species are native, but their numbers need to be in check a little bit. And other species aren't native, but even like with carp, they were introduced a long time ago, but their numbers they're so prolific that there's no way we're ever going to get all of them shot. But they can produce so many eggs each year, and they have such a high turnaround as far as survival, I guess. And they get crazy. I mean, the goldfish, they're the same way. I mean, there's dogfish are going to be everywhere. They've been here for a long time, but their numbers do get a little crazy in certain areas, and they just eat so many fish. Which, I mean, that's their thing. But they can affect like trout waters and stuff like that too, salmon waters. But yeah, what we do with them though, a lot of times we have people that come to the events. They take them for whether it's pet food or they're people that come. There was some people coming to do organic fertilizer, kind of startup companies. A lot of times the farmers take them for fertilizer that basically gets turned back into beef or dairy or whatever. Or people bury them in their food plots for fertilizer or their gardens. So we don't just dump them nowhere. But we found other ways to go with them because dumpsters are getting so expensive. We had to kind of look more toward the farmers, and they can actually use it. So it's even more of a benefit that way for both sides.
So yeah, and these fish are a great fertilizer. But what you're saying, I agree with you, is just have a plan ahead of time. Don't come back to the boat launch and say, geez, I got all these fish now. What am I going to do with them? I'm going to leave them here. No, don't do that. Have a plan to get rid of them and put them in people's gardens or food plots or farmers ahead of time.
Yeah, exactly. That's the quick. It's going to take a couple bad apples to ruin it pretty quick. But overall, we do a real good job in policing ourselves. We try our best. We actually have some signs that if there's areas that are problematic, we'll take some signs and post some signs and try to be present, try to educate the young kids. Because, I mean, some of the times it's just young kids. They don't know really what to do. They'll just go dump them in the ditch on the way home. And, you guys catch up with the sport, but that's our biggest thing. And then, obviously, you want to try to be curious around the houses. We're still legal being on the waters, but there's certain areas where especially marinas, where people may be sleeping overnight or that are living close quarters with campgrounds right there. We try not to, bug those areas too much with it. And we try to, most of our generators are quiet, but there are a lot of guys that have airboats too, and they just courtesy.
The sport of bow fishing in general has grown so fast across the country, but right here in Michigan too, right?
Yeah, it's definitely boomed. It's been for a while. It's been a trend going up. It's easy to get into, and once you get in, you're kind of hooked. It's kind of, you don't have to worry about trying to get them fish to bite. You just find them and take care of them. But you can do it, like I say, cheaply from the shore with garage sale bows, just part time. Or if you want to get serious, you can get work your way up to a better setup for your archery tackle or even your boat. And you can go shoot tournaments all the way across the country, so. Well,
and some of you folks, probably you included, Jesse, are indeed pretty serious about this. What about these? Describe these rigs for me, these bow fishing rigs. I mean, I see them, and they look pretty cool.
Yeah, there's all sorts of setups. But, you can use a long bow or recurve, and they have actually a spool mounted. It's more like an open spool. You just hand wind on there, and there's lots of different arrow choices. Most of them are just a fiberglass arrow with a tip that once you go through the fish, you just twist it and it loosens the barbs and they come right back off. But there's a line attached, obviously, to the fish. You're not just shooting arrows with a line. So basically, it's not it's still a projectile, but it's with a line. It's more of a fishing device. But anyways, there's other ones like AMS sells a couple different open spool designs where you can actually pull the trigger and reel it back in rather than wind it by hand. You reel it with the reel. Those are pretty simple and durable. There's lots of different line choices, as far as your hand line and if you're reeling, but there's different style lever bows, there's different compound bows. You really can put a reel on about anyone. There's lots of different options for mounting and different reels. Some other reels are more of like a fishing reel. They call them a spin cast, and there's 3 or 4 different, Muzzy and some other ones that make Cajun. There's even some adapted Zepco 888s or some Zepcos they make now that are like a modified version for bow fishing. So there's lots of different options. Lots of different places now that sell the equipment too. Even Jay's carries a good selection up that way too.
Yeah, you can get into it. I love this thing about bow fishing because you can get into it real basic, real cheap, real easy. Like you can wade out in the shallows of Saginaw Bay or any inland lake and shoot them that way, or you can get these rigs, these carp shooting rigs, these boats with generators on them and take it to the next level.
Yeah, there's lots of options there too as far as some will have double motors, one will be their main outboard, one will be a kicker motor. There's other ones that have fans like my boat. I've got a fan in the back that pushes the boat around because trolling motors get pretty expensive, and what we do with the trolling motors, they don't like it. It gets costly, and you're always working on trolling motors. They just don't hold up. There's newer ones now, but they're pretty pricey. There's troller rigs, just with the actual trolling motor. There's the airboats. There's some guys that, have the old style motors. And there's others that have the new style motors, and you can get super crazy with those. They get over, they're 6-figure price tags in some of them boats, but that's what they're purpose built, and they're made to go where you want to go, and they're going to get you point A to point B. It just may not pass a gas station, but
Jesse, hang tight, Jesse. We got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. We're talking with Jesse Hurst, who is the president of the Bowfishing Association of Michigan, Bowfish BAM. Their website is bowfishbam.com, bowfishbam.com. They had a very cool kids event out of Bay City last weekend. This weekend, as you're listening to the show, they have a Great Lakes bow fishing shoot in Caseville. Very, very cool. So we'll take a break. When we come back, I want to talk more with Jesse about this sport of bow fishing, more about how you get started in it, and is it a daytime sport? Is it a nighttime sport? Or is it both? My bow fishing adventures have been on Saginaw Bay during the daytime, but I hear these stories about going out after dark. You don't know what you're going to see in the shallow water. You're sneaking through there, coming up on all these different types of fish. It's a different world, I think a very cool world, and we'll talk more with Jesse after the break. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Battle Creek on WBCK, that's 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Port Huron, WPHM 1380 AM, and north of the bridge in Manistee, WTIQ 1490 AM, 95.3 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Killer Food Plots. It is the food plot planting season. If you're going to get involved in food plots, you've got a lot of time, you've got a lot of effort, and maybe a lot of expense as well. Why not work with a Michigan-based family-owned company? I highly recommend Killer Food Plots. Check them out online at killerfoodplots.com, killerfoodplots.com, and be sure to listen to the latest Killer Food Plots podcast as I talk with company owner Rich Krazan about getting the most out of your food plots and what you should be doing right now, killerfoodplots.com. Right now, though, I am talking with Jesse Hurst, who is the president of the Bowfish Association of Michigan. Their mission is to promote and preserve the sport of bowfishing. And Jesse, that's a message you guys take very seriously, isn't it?
Yeah, we're trying to clean up our waters, one fish at a time, like we say. Trying to get rid of some of these rough fish. Some of the rough fish, their numbers need to be in check, and some of them need to go as far as the carp and as far whether it's the common carp or some of these grass carp we have to deal with too also. So
yeah, people talk. You say, "Oh no, we don't want to see Asian carp in the Great Lakes." Well, they're already in the Great Lakes. Grass carp are a form of Asian carp, and you're seeing them out there, aren't you?
Yeah, there's different places we've seen them. We're trying to work in cohorts with the DNR. Anytime we get a sighting or people hit one and lose one, or they get on the boat, we're trying to get the info to the DNR and trying to get the DNR to come. The DNR will come and get the fish from you, whether you catch it line and reel or boat fishing. They're trying to do all they can do as far as being proactive, as far as learning, as far as information, taking blood tests, sexing the fish, trying to determine if those fish are breeding fish, because some fish aren't because they came from fish farms and they're just growing in our waters. But some fish are breeding, and they're trying to narrow down where, when, how. They're trying to find the best way to combat those fish, because if they get in here and they get too many numbers, it's not going to be a good thing.
Jesse, is bow fishing a daytime activity or a nighttime sport?
You can do it either way. I mean, I remember back in the day hearing stories of my dad and grandpa and all of them. They would go out with lanterns and canoes, or they would do wading. You can do it during the day, during the night with spotlights in your head. But it depends on your situation. Some people can't go out at night. They've got young kids, or they just aren't night owls like some of us. But during the day is when the fish are going to be spawning the most, and the water's warm, when the temperature's just right. They're going to be spawning during the day, not at night, so it makes it a little easier to find them. There's a lot of times we go out at night with the lights on our boats, and you just look for them, and anywhere from 1 foot to 6-8 foot sometimes, maybe clear water, but mostly 2-3 foot. You'll find them sitting there. You'll see everything out there, whether it's the swans or the beavers or the softshell turtles or snapper turtles. You'll see it all, but it just depends on whatever's feasible for you, really, I guess.
So it's either, right? It's whatever you want it to be. It's whatever your schedule allows it to be.
Yep. And I mean, different times of year, earlier in the year, obviously, different fish spawn at different times. You'll have the dogfish, they're going to be spawning a little earlier than some of the other fish, and the carp come through and they're spawning right about this time of year. A lot of it just depends on water temperature and mainly just water temperature. It's nothing to do with early moon phases, I don't think, as far as like deer and stuff would be, but more like just a perfect water temp, and they just once they're spawning, they're in big numbers, and it kind of concentrates them up shallower, so it's easier to get on, whether it's the gar, or the bullhead, or whatever the rough fish would be.
So is it a Great Lakes activity or inland lakes or both?
Really, you can bow fish about any water in Michigan. If it's private and you got permission, there's going to be something there you can legally shoot on the rough fish list. A lot of the rivers are going to have a little bit, obviously bigger water, bigger fish generally. Sometimes it's the opposite, because there's some private lakes I know, or even some other small local lakes that have massive carp. It just depends how long they've been there and whether they've been, a bowfish before. But no, the Great Lakes have them too. It's just obviously bigger water, a little trickier, a little more wave activity on the shorelines. That's, we usually are up shallow, and if you're up shallow on the Great Lakes and it's too windy, that ain't going to work out for you. So,
I got to believe though, Yeah, I know it's several different kinds of rough fish, but it's carp that we hear mostly about. I got to believe you get a 20-pound carp in your sights. You shoot them, you get them on the end of your line. That's got to be kind of a battle in itself.
Yes, for sure. I mean, depending if you have to hand line them sometimes or if you can reel them in, kind of work them in like you would like a regular fishing reel, you kind of just pump up and down. There's times when if you have another person with a spear in their hand, they can actually help you out with that spear, or another person on the boat when we're returning to fishing. Usually the bigger fish, we're usually going to shoot them with multiple arrows. That way we get them in the boat. So it all depends too. Sometimes the water's a little warmer, they get a little softer. It obviously depends on where you hit them, whether it's if it's in the gills, or if it's in the side, or if it's in the back. Usually if it's in the back somewhere, it's pretty good. It's usually going to catch a rib with one of those barbs. The belly, if you shoot low, it's a little trickier, but yeah, usually it takes multiple arrows for bigger fish.
Jesse Hurst of the Bowfishing Association of Michigan, I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. I appreciate the boss letting you talk for us for a few minutes. The website, bowfishbam.com, bowfishbam.com. These guys are involved in getting kids in bowfishing and a big event this weekend. Jesse, let's stay in touch and have fun, all right?
Sounds good. You can check out our socials, our self-named Bowfishing Association of Michigan. We've also got a small podcast we've been trying to keep updating. And then, the Michigan, the Youth Michigan Bowfishing Championship, we have a Facebook page for that too. And definitely if your kids are interested, and it's a free thing for the kids, and it's next year, Saturday of Memorial Weekend at Bay City State Park.
Excellent, Jesse. We will look for all of those. Jesse Hurst of the Bowfishing Association of Michigan, bowfishbam.com. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show on more than 30 stations across the great state of Michigan, including WKYO in Cairo, that's 1360 AM, and WIDL 92.1 FM. You can hear us in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Escanaba, WCHT 600 AM, 93.5 FM. I would not be able to do this show for so many years on so many different stations around the state without support from a lot of people. And I do appreciate that very much. The advertising partners I work with are a very special group, and I do appreciate that. Security Credit Union has supported the Outdoor Magazine radio show for many, many years now. They are the sponsor of the daily Outdoor Magazine Minutes heard across the state on so many stations. And now the Security Credit Union Foundation has stepped up as the top dog sponsor of our golf outing this year, the second annual Mike Avery Outdoors Charity Golf Outing. Again, that'll be Friday, July 25th. This is to support MUCC's youth camp. If you want to get involved, go to mucc.org/golf. But Security Credit Union, these guys they've been around for a long time. They continue to grow like crazy. And I wanted to take just a minute to talk about that. Ashley Lister is the marketing director for Security Credit Union, and she's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Ashley, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing great, Mike. Thank you so much for having us. And yes, like you said, we have supported the show for a long time in the magazine, and we're excited about the golf outing and able to come in and just really be able to support your efforts there. And we truly believe in all the things you're doing, and it's just an honor to be a part of it.
Well, thank you. The honor is mine. Let's talk a little bit about Security Credit Union. You guys are celebrating an anniversary.
We are, yes. It's been 75 years, which is amazing, and we're very excited about adding a new location to that as well, which is in your neck of the woods, in the Great Lakes Bay region there in Midland, and it's on Saginaw Road, and our opening date is actually just around the corner. It's on Monday, June 2nd, and then we're also going to be celebrating with a big ribbon cutting on Thursday, June 12th at 11 a.m., and we're excited because we're going to have like an ice cream truck and a bunch of fun giveaways. That'll be just a perfect way to like kick off the summer, coming up here. So we're pumped.
Wonderful. How many locations do you have now?
So we have 14 right now, but adding Midland will actually be 15. So we're kind of spread out all over the place, kind of like you.
Well, it's a great fit. Now, I have said for a long time that Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women. You're a very, very broad-based organization, but you have in the past, at least, certainly focused in on these outdoor groups in a lot of situations.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're also a part of the Woods and Water event that's in the Lapeer area. That is a really big one. So that is another one that's really like near and dear and close to our heart that we love. We've done a lot of the chamber like clay shoots that they've offered. So yeah, we're always trying to promote anything in the outdoors and just get people thinking that we're here too.
Well, and you are here, and you are a big part of the outdoors. And I look back to the history of Security Credit Union, where you started. And if I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it was in Flint in the auto industry in the plants, right?
Yep, that's correct. Yep, we were founded with Buick City, and that's actually what our original name was, the Buick City Employees Credit Union. So we're real still near and dear to our roots there, and we still have several board members that are on our board that worked there and helped, form the credit union and have a lot of passion, and which we really appreciate those roots.
Well, I think, people work hard for their money. And I think if you're going to work with somebody, in a financial world, you might as well partner with people who take that responsibility as seriously as we do. And I think Security Credit Union is a great choice. That's why I partnered with you, and I appreciate it, Ashley.
Thank you, Mike. We really appreciate that.
Again, the second annual Mike Avery Outdoors Charity Golf Outing is Friday, July 25th at the West Branch Country Club in beautiful West Branch. And Security Credit Union, their foundation, has stepped. Hey, tell me about that foundation, Ashley. That's brand new. Where did that come from?
It is. It's very brand new. We're only about a year and a half old into it, so I feel like we're still getting our feet wet. We have a wonderful executive director, Sherry Johnson. She's got quite a bit of years of service just in that space of being the director in foundations and how they work. So she definitely keeps us on our toes. But they had come to us in the marketing department and asked, is there any initiatives that you guys have that maybe the foundation could take over? And I immediately thought of you guys because of, the kids aspect and helping there and trying to, get the word out more of the outdoors and keep that legacy going. And they all agreed that it was a great fit. And so I was really excited to reach out to you to let you know that, hey, we're not just going to do the golf outing. We actually want to sponsor the entire thing.
Excellent, and I appreciate that so very much. Ashley Lister of Security Credit Union, the website securitycu.org, securitycu.org. Thank you for your support of the activities I've been involved in, and just thank you for your support of the community and continued success. 75 years. Good luck to you, Ashley, and we will certainly stay in touch.
Thanks, Mike. Have a great day.
You as well, Ashley Lister of Security Credit Union. Again, securitycu.org, securitycu.org. You got to love an organization who stands up and supports and really puts their resources behind what they believe in. And Security Credit Union has done that as the top dog sponsor of the second annual Mike Avery Outdoors Charity Golf Outing to benefit MUCC's Youth Camp. That is Friday, July 25th at the West Branch Country Club. If you would like to be involved, you can sign up at mucc.org/golf. That's mucc.org/golf. And the website for Security Credit Union, securitycu.org, securitycu.org. We'll take a break. Coming up in our second hour, Joe Bednar talks about pike fishing, Seth Herbst of the DNR, and John Upp from Great Lakes River Raisin Ballistics.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Yater Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, The Forward Corporation, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Hammond Drives and Equipment, Garber Chevrolet, the West Branch Visitors Bureau, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery. Thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show right here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on more than 30 radio stations across this great state of Michigan. And you know You know, I think the best way to listen to the show, if you can, is on your local AM or FM station. There you can get your local news and weather and sports, and maybe there's a local sale, a local ad, something you want to take advantage of. Plus, the broadcast version, the broadcast stations get the content of the show before the podcast version is uploaded. So, yes, of course, there is a podcast version of the radio show. There's a podcast version of everything these days. It kind of drives me crazy sometimes, right? I'll have people say, hey, I listened to your show last weekend. It was really good. I say, well, where did you listen to it? You know, I'm thinking, you know, people confuse podcast and radio show all the time. They're two different things. To me, they are. To you, I realize they're not. They're the same thing. You can hear the podcast version of the radio show on my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. It's on my Facebook page. It's on Amazon and Audible and Twitter, now called X, and LinkedIn and Apple and Google and iHeart and SoundCloud and Spotify and TuneIn and Stitcher and Player and Deezer and Odyssey and YouTube. All those different places. And each month, I do love podcasting, right? I joke around about it, but I do love podcasting. And each month I do podcasts for some of my advertising partners, including Offshore Tackle, Angler Quest, QUEST Boats, and Killer Food Plots as well. Regardless, though, of how you are hearing my voice or when you are hearing my voice or whether you're listening to the broadcast version of the podcast, thank you. I do appreciate it so very much. People say to me, where do you get your guests that join you on the show? Well, that's an interesting question. They come from a lot of different places. Most of it is just from being in the industry for so very long. I know a lot of people. I know what's going on. I know who to reach out. But every once in a while, I will have somebody reach out to me and say, hey, you know what? I would love to be on your show. And after vetting those people, because I can't just let anybody who contact me be on the show, I usually, I occasionally follow up. This time around, Joe Bednar reached out to me, and he said, hey, Mike, I am a hardcore Michigan pike addict. And if you would like to talk about pike fishing, I would be available to do so. And I checked him out, and the guy's legit, and he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. You see how that works? Joe, welcome to the show. How are you?
Great, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, listen, it's a real pleasure. You are a pike addict indeed, aren't you?
Yeah, I've been into it, my whole life. Probably now over 50 years of pike fishing, almost all in Michigan. So, I can't seem to shake the love affair with pike, but I like fishing for everything else, too.
But why pike? Why do they hold such a special place in your fishing heart?
It's I really think they're kind of the optimum combination of at least what I enjoy about fishing. They're a fish that hits hard and fights hard, and there's a really nice average size. Like even a pike that's not considered very big, say 20, 22 inches, is still, a nicer sized fish, stronger fish than most of what I catch in the inland waters, at least. And I live inland, by Battle Creek, so mostly fishing smaller lakes and rivers. But just a really thrilling fish, and it's kind of a combination of a lot of action, but also that big fish thrill. So there's a little bit of a taste of, say, the musky pursuit, but a lot more, in between those occasional big fish or even rare big fish. So I just absolutely love them. So, variety of tactics all year long, too. So all kinds of different places. Just can't get enough of it. I'd be glad to take you out sometime, Mike.
Well, listen, I catch my fair share of pike over here on Saginaw Bay, targeting walleye, but I feel like for you, pike is not an incidental catch. It is your target species most of the time.
It is. Yeah, those other fish get in the way now and then, but I feel like they're a lot of fun.
I'm looking at your Instagram feed, and you are a mad pike fan on Instagram. You say all the rest just feed the best. Tell me what you mean by that.
That's that lighthearted.
Sure.
You probably heard that line. Everything else is just bait, too. It was just a little spin on that. But, I see pike as kind of top of the food chain, musky and stuff as well.
Sure,
but,
sure. So you are a Southwest Michigan guy, which proves you don't necessarily have to go to the North Country to find pike.
Right. And I think that's a lot of times it gets forgotten. Like people think, well, I got to make my Canada trip or even northern Michigan, and Michigan's got great pike opportunity all over. But the southern part of the state, it's surprising. I do quite well. I've lived there, of course, a long time. Get to learn where to go. But it's just an overlooked opportunity. And again, lakes and rivers of all sizes. I've caught really nice pike from creeks and almost little puddles, practically little ponds, all the way up, of course, to the Great Lakes when I get on them.
Do you find the bigger the water, the bigger the fish? Are you going to find bigger pike in the Great Lakes than you will a small creek flowing through farmland?
That's a good question. Yeah, the ultimate size potential would be big water, Great Lakes, like, say, Bays to Knock, Northern Lake Huron, Lake Superior, just that little more longevity, cold water refuge, bigger prey. But those little places can surprise you. I've definitely caught 40-inch class pike from small creeks, even stocked trout creeks, which I know not everyone wants to hear that they're maybe enjoying some fresh brown trout quite often. But they do get, I think, a little bit of a bad rep for they're preying on other species. A big pike would just assume eat a small pike and absolutely prefers suckers, Cisco smell. They really don't take the toll that people imagine. So, and maybe if we talk a little bit of management, and sorry I get to rambling, but if there's going to be an impact from pike, it would be actually those fisheries with too many small pike, where they can kind of stunt and overpopulate, and then they are competing more with the rest of the system. So kind of an advocate for trying to manage toward a more balanced pike fishery so they can help control their own numbers. They're quite cannibalistic, actually.
What do you consider a trophy pike, a big pike? You mentioned 40 inches. Is that your number?
Yeah, that's my life. That's been the number. But Michigan, they actually changed the master angler threshold to 36 inches a while back. I think recognizing the accomplishment of that size pike in stateside water. So, I'm with that. That gives more people that kind of that thrill, that goal, and truly, a lot of waters really can't grow a 40-inch pike. Just the forage isn't right to get there. Plus, the longevity. But 36 in that range, pretty much all our waters. It can sound surprising because most get smaller pike, but I've caught them from really, eutrophic lakes, small, kind of warm rivers. You can definitely hit that size virtually anywhere in Michigan.
Well, I think I've only caught one 36-inch pike in my life, but I sure have caught a lot of what people call hammer handle pike along the way.
That's right. Well, and that's I think even the small pike are a lot of fun on the right tackle. And some will kind of maybe put them down a little bit, see them as pickles or hammer handles, but that pike, not all of them are going to grow, but those female pike, if they get the chance, they're going to easily attain a really impressive size for the Michigan angler. And I'm down with eating small pike too. Don't get me wrong, but so I guess I have a love for pike of all stuff.
Well, you hold pike to be a very special fish, but as you well know, I suspect, Joe, not everybody in our state feels this way. I mean, there are some parts of the UP that, in the old days, people would catch a small pike, slit his throat, and throw him back. I mean, that's got to break your heart to hear that.
I know, and I've still heard of examples of that, or also, they don't want to unhook it, so they'll cut the line, and good chance. Well, the fish might make it, but other times, if its throat is pinned shut, it's not going to make it, and plus they'll lose whatever lure or bait they're using. Over time, though, I think people have become more informed, and that's gotten better. That kind of the culture of days gone by. So I'm optimistic that we're going to keep moving forward on it.
Joe, hang tight. We got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. We're talking with Joe Bednar. You can follow him online, say on Instagram. He is Mad Pike Fan on Instagram. He's also written a book about pike fishing. We'll talk about that after the break. But like as I say, we do have to take this break. Joe reached out to me, and I went to his Instagram page, and it's like, this is pretty cool. He's got some very cool images of some really, I consider a monster pike, right? But the biggest pike I've ever seen. I caught one. Years and years ago, I was fishing for whatever I could catch on Lake Charlevoix, and I caught a 36 and a 38-incher back-to-back, two different casts. I went, whoa, this is incredible. These days, on Saginaw Bay, we will often catch very big pike as we're trolling for walleye, but they're an incidental catch. When we come back, I want to talk to Joe about how he targets pike, again, where he finds pike, and much more, and then also about the book he wrote as well. Joe Bednar here on Outdoor Magazine talking about pike fishing here in the great state of Michigan. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Houghton Lake on the Twister 92.1 WTWS. You can hear us in Holland on WHTC 1450 AM 99.7 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Marquette at WDMJ 1320 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine, okay, you know what that means, right? That's the sound of my Rapid River knife locking back open. I just took it out of my pocket. I carry it with me all the time, but you know this by now. So, Rapid River knives, I can't say enough about these folks. Chris Durson and his crew in Rapid River in the UP, they make a top quality knife. They're handmade by craftsmen. They are guaranteed for a life. We're working on a Mike Avery signature edition of the Uper Pocket Clip. I'm very excited about it. It'll be available soon now. We're just trying to tweak the exact colors. I'm partnering up with Chris, and we're going to make a special knife with proceeds going to Outdoor Driven, which is a Michigan-based group they are formed to get vets and first responders in the outdoors. I have no more of a truer calling could there be in my mind than a mission like that. So more on that coming up. Thank you, Chris. The website, rapidriverknifeworks.com. That's rapidriverknifeworks.com. Right now, though, talking with Joe Bednar. Joe is a Michigan pike fishing addict. You can follow him online at Mad Pike Fan on Instagram. And, Joe, you actually wrote a book about pike fishing, right?
I did. It's called Diary of a Mad Pike Fan, so maybe a fitting name for it. So it kind of chronicles my 40-year-plus log of fish. I log everything, but the focus has been on pike. So try to, give a good account of where, and when to find the best pike. But focus on like more pressured waters, or at least well-fished waters. So like Michigan, a lot of the pike material out there shows and other coverage will focus on, the Canadian wilderness strip.
Right,
so
right.
This is about close to home pike fishing, and mostly Michigan, which is where I've done almost all my pike fishing. So you have
hold on, I want to make sure I understand this. You have a log of every pike you've caught for 40 years?
It's 44 years. I know, it's insane. Every fishing, I'm really OCD about these things. So yeah, I've got a fishing log, 40 years of records, mostly pike. It's pretty crazy.
So what have you? And I got to tell you, Joe, your cell is breaking up a little bit. I don't know if you're just on the edge of it, or if you can move a little bit for us. Maybe we can get a better signal. But what have 44 years of logs taught you about pike fishing?
Well, in some ways, it's the more you learn, the more you realize how little you know, right?
Yeah.
But no, there's been a huge education. I mean, went from I just need to go cast anything over the nearest weeds, to really taking it a lot further than that, really trying to understand where this top predator likes to hang out. They're basically an ambush type fish, so you have to look for the best places that they can wait. I mean, they're lazy, especially the bigger ones, so they're laying in the best spots they can find and just waiting for the opportunity for prey to come by. They're not, especially the large ones, they're not chasing things around as much as, say, a smaller pike or say a lot of bass and stuff. So you kind of have to see the larger pike as a different species, basically, to start targeting them more.
So when you're targeting a big pike, a trophy pike, you do approach it differently. How do you fish for them differently than, say, you're just going to go out and try to catch anything that bites?
Right. Yeah, I would see it as opposed to, say, springtime, like now, looking for your emerging weeds, your best weed growth, well, you're going to catch, say, pike, bass, hopefully some walleye, like just fishing through the weeds with a variety of baits. But that larger predator, pike or muskie, it's probably going to be laying down low in the water column near the edge, like the outside edge, sometimes the inside edge, if you can find an inside edge to a weed bed, but definitely the outside edge. And you're going to present like deeper, even in spring, which kind of sounds okay, they're still can be relatively shallow, but you're still a little deeper in the water column if you can. So whereas you might throw an inline spinner or spinnerbait or spoon kind of over the top of weeds, for a larger pike, they might take those, hopefully they will, but your odds are better actually getting down near the base of them. Take like a heavier spinnerbait and just pull it right through there. You just want to make it easy for the big predator lying in ambush, just to almost like just impulsively not pass up that opportunity and just smash that bait. So a lot of my big pike are caught that way, as opposed to more conventional, just cover water.
Would you, if you're targeting bigger pike, would you have a slower presentation then, because those big fish are just in some ways lazier? Yeah. Thanks for mentioning that, Mike. Absolutely, slower, consistently slower. That's why, year in and year out, especially in the winter, cold months, where we're fishing stationary anyway. But live and dead baits take your bigger pike, just because of that. They're not, they're efficient in that sense. They're not going to burn a lot of energy if they don't have to nourish themselves. So they're going to take a bigger, slower, easy to catch meal any day. So how would you target, say, a pike out in the Great Lakes as opposed to an inland lake? That two different fisheries, two different types of fishing, I suspect.
They are, and I've done way more inland water fishing, but I've been on the bays and like St. Clair and the Lower Detroit River and whatnot. And still, I tend to see it because my boat's big. I fish out of a kayak or I fish out of a 16-foot boat. I'll big water and get more lichen in the lake. So like, say, for example, little bait and knock, I'll just treat that like a good size inland lake. So it's still similar to that strategy of weed edge fishing most of the time. And so now I have to confess, I need to get out there, Mike. I've not fished Saginaw Bay, but I would suspect that the pike would still be relating toward nearshore weedy areas. And if you can find the best edges of that, and maybe the very best for me, if you can find an inside turn on that edge. It's like a little cove. You wouldn't see it, say, from the shoreline, but where the weed lines make a little cove shape, it's like a funnel, and the pike will back up in there, a good one. And sometimes there'll just be one sitting there, kind of dominates the spot. And so if you can find that, be it Saginaw Bay or anywhere else, if you're going to really target pike, that's probably like your best formula.
I feel like targeting a trophy pike in some ways is like targeting a big buck. And, in southern Michigan, where you've got the bulk of the population and you've got heavy fishing pressure and hunting pressure, again, the equation to pike fishing as opposed to, let me ask you this, Joe, is that a good analogy?
It is, and you got me thinking about just like we might try, because I hunt deer also and turkey, just like we might try to get away from where others are pressuring them. It's the same thing with pike. So even though it's really can be a pain, I actually drag my kayak into some tough spots that really aren't very accessible from normal public accesses. So I'm getting up creeks or using the small rivers where you have to portage over some log jams and stuff. It's a workout, but these pike, just like you might find in a really tough to get to spot for a quality buck, these pike are in there not really getting pressured, and there's some just ridiculously good fishing even in southern Michigan by just putting in the work to get away from everyone else, basically.
You threw me there at the last minute, because I was thinking, okay, so I'm going to have to go to the UP to target a trophy pike, but then by going to the UP, you got colder water, slower growing seasons, there aren't as many fish, and then you said, but now I can target them in southern Michigan. So it's kind of a chess game, I feel like you're playing here, Joe.
But UP's got some great, the Great Lakes fisheries and some of the big inland lakes, they're still, and then when you look at growth rate data, I've got some of that in the book and had an article out on that a while back. There's still some really good growing fisheries in the UP also, like if you break down growth rates. And it's worth looking at because they're not a real long-lived fish. So if realistically, if it's already taking a long time even to get to 24 inches or longer than it should in a better situation, then you're already like kind of reducing your odds.
Yeah.
But anyway, to your point, there's good growing pike fisheries basically all over the state. It's erratic. Like you'll have some stunted pike waters, you could call it, where they're slow growing, kind of crowded, and that's what I'm hoping to advocate to kind of manage away from. There's ways to hopefully counter that.
Well, how do you manage? So you got a lake that's filled with hammer handle fish, what are commonly called hammer handle pike. How do you deal with that? How do you catch all the small fish you can and get them out of that resource, out of the fishery?
That's been generally the strategy in different ways. Now, Michigan, we have our 24-inch minimum 2-pike limit as the statewide standard, but we have about 200 waters with no minimum size limit, and just one can be over 24 inches, and there's a 5-pike data limit. That was the objective, was to thin out the numbers of small pike and attain some better growth. And it's better for the rest of the fish too, with a more balanced fishery and not as many pike. But involved with the fisheries division on this, they haven't found that has really helped. So the slots now that they're working on, and we've got 12 slot waters right now, that is showing a lot of potential. That's what I'm really excited about. And they've used them in Minnesota and Wisconsin too for a while now. But I really like the Michigan, the specifics of their slot. So you can take 2 small pike under 24 and nothing from 24 to 34. And technically, you could keep your pike over 30. You can keep 2 pike, but they have to be outside of that slot range of 24 to 34. And you can make a case for, say, a higher bag limit with that slot further north and the UP to try to knock down those numbers a little more. But they were looking for kind of a compromise.
So forgive my ignorance. Do we have pike slot limits in Michigan now or not?
We do. We have 12 lakes right now with a slot limit.
12, okay.
And that's what I've been real excited about, because I focus on a couple of them and talk about it in the book, and hopefully have an article out pretty soon on that. But those have really started to show the change that we're after, where the numbers, overall pike numbers have reduced, but the size structures become more balanced. So one of these lakes in particular, which is near Portage, Kalamazoo area, I get to fish, and I've watched it change from what you'd call a hammer handle pike lake, say average size of 20 or 22 inches, to now over half the fish are in that really fun catching size of 24 to 34 inches. So it shifted the population from small to now more balanced, and there's less pike, but that's what you want for the overall health of the fishery. And for the pike fishermen, it's great, and you can still keep a couple small pike. And I like to say, if they're legal, I like a 22 or 23-inch pike to eat. That's perfect. But they're really trying to let those females grow through that slot. Males actually rarely make it even to 24 inches.
Joe, I got to let you go. We're out of time. Your cell has been a little bit screwy anyway, so I got to let you go. I'm out of time. We're talking with Joe Bednar. You can find him. You can follow him online, as I have been doing. Mad Pike Fan on Instagram. Mad Pike Fan on Instagram. Joe, I appreciate you reaching out to me. I'm going to keep an eye on you. I'm looking forward to you holding a picture of a 40-inch fish this summer. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about the Midwest Walleye Challenge here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine radio show in Ludington on News 97, 98, 98.7 WLDN. You can hear us in Sandusky on WMIC 660 AM, 95.3 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in the Sioux, WKNW 1400 AM. The Outdoor Magazine show, this segment of the show is brought to you by Versa Skins. Just change your skin for the season you're in. Michigan-based family-owned Versa Skins owner Paul Perone has come up with a great concept. Why buy a bunch of different sets of expensive hunting clothes when you can buy one good quality set and snap on and zip on an outer shell of a different camo pattern? Check them out online at versaskins.com or amazon.com and Versa Skins brand. I want to turn our attention now to something that I just learned about. It's called the Midwest Walleye Challenge. I was seeing this online. I thought the Midwest Walleye Challenge, and the Michigan DNR is actually promoting this. I thought I would like to learn more about this. And Seth Herbst from the Michigan DNR is the guy to help us do that. Seth, welcome back to the show. How have you been?
Appreciate it, Mike, and good morning. I've been doing well. How about yourself?
I've been doing real well. So tell me about the Midwest Walleye Challenge. Is this just a Michigan thing, or as it the name would make you think, beyond in Midwest, across the Midwest?
Yeah, Mike, this is a challenge and kind of a unique project that spans the Midwest, so several states are involved with it. As you are well aware, walleye management, walleye fishing is very popular in the Midwest, and this is an effort that spans several states throughout the Midwestern part of the country, native range of walleye, to help learn more about walleye populations with the help of our anglers.
How so?
So this is an opportunity where anglers can sign up for the Midwest Walleye Challenge via the MyCatch app that is part of Anglers Atlas. And as soon as you register and sign up for the app, as anglers are out on the water fishing for walleye and ideally catching walleye, they can provide information on how long they were fishing, how many walleye they caught, which then feeds us as resource agencies, Michigan DNR being one of them, information on the status of walleye populations. So as you might expect, Mike, more robust walleye populations often lead to higher catch rates. So that's something that we're tracking throughout the state of Michigan, but other states are interested in that information as well.
I feel like here in Michigan, our DNR has a pretty good handle on our walleye population. I feel like it's one of the more studied fisheries. Seth, is that the case?
It is, Mike. So we do have an inland walleye management plan that has a series of goals laid out that we prioritize each year. And as part of implementing that plan, survey work for walleye is one of the things that we do. You're probably well aware of conversations associated with trying to support walleye populations via regulation recommendations that end up in front of the Natural Resource Commission. But it's also a species that we actively manage via stocking. So, yeah, walleye get a lot of attention from Michigan DNR Fisheries Division. We know that it's a popular species among our anglers, and it's also an ecologically important species as a top predator. The reason why we kind of leaned into the Midwest Walleye Challenge, Mike, is simply the fact that we have a lot of different types of water bodies in the state of Michigan. Roughly 11,000 inland lakes, tens of thousands of rivers and stream miles. And it's just a challenge for Michigan DNR to manage all of those waters as intensively as we would like. And to be able to gain more information, we're leaning into the citizen science approach here in hopes that we can get more information from our anglers. And, one of the things, Mike, that I've heard, go ahead.
No,
I was just going to say one of the...
Go ahead, Seth.
I was going to say one of the things that I've heard often during my career with Fisheries Division from anglers is, how can I help? How can I assist with conservation efforts for walleye management in the state? And this is just one great example of how anglers can do that.
If you told me this, I missed it, but who is behind the Midwest Walleye Challenge? What group is putting this on, Seth?
It is Anglers Atlas.
Anglers
So
Atlas.
It's a group that, it's a group that created the MyCatch app. And the Midwest Walleye Challenge is one of the citizen science type of challenges or events that they're organizing. They've also done different events and challenges on the East Coast associated with different fish species of interest to management agencies. So this is something that the group is very familiar with organizing, and thus far we're learning quite a bit on walleye populations throughout the state because of the Midwest Walleye Challenge. This is year 2 in Michigan, but Midwest Walleye Challenge was initially started in Iowa, and I know Iowa has had a lot of value in the feedback that they're receiving from this event.
I didn't realize this was the second year for this event. So you've had a year under your belt to learn a little bit about this, Seth. So I appreciate you coming on board to talk about this. Of course, walleye are close to my heart. The website for the Michigan DNR is michigan.gov/DNR. And real quick, Seth, where do we go to sign up again for the Midwest Walleye Challenge?
The easiest way, Mike, would just be to Google Midwest Walleye Challenge, and then that'll take you to a site to be able to register.
Good old Google. Thank you, Seth, for that. I appreciate it. We'll take a break here on the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, this week's Ask Avery question, and it's a question about the 41 Great Lakes cartridge that some people say could replace the 450 Bushmaster and the 350 Legend. We'll find out after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Houghton Lake on 98.5 WUPS. You can hear us in Muskegon on WKBZ 1090 AM and north of the bridge in Newberry, WNBY 1450 AM. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week by the good folks at Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoors men and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. The way the Ask Avery segment works, this is your chance to get involved in the content of the show. You can send me a question you want me to answer directly or pass along to somebody else. Again, the best way to get these questions to me is to send me a good old-fashioned email, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. Don't send them to me in a social media message. I may or may not see it. A good old-fashioned email to mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. And that is exactly what John Sullivan did. Now, I don't think this is the same John Sullivan from Lure Lipstick. I think it's a different John Sullivan. He sent me an email. Hey, Mike, I heard you talking a while ago about a new rifle cartridge specific here to the Great Lakes. It had a lot of promise. What's the name again, and can I buy it now at a retailer? So I think what John is talking about is the 41 Great Lakes. Very high hopes for this. People say it's going to replace the 450 Bushmaster and the 350 Legend. The very, very cool thing about this is it was developed by a Michigan company. River Raisin Ballistics. John Upp is the guy who is with River Raisin Ballistics, and he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Hey, John, welcome back. How are you?
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate you having me.
Always a pleasure. Now, I think what John Sullivan is talking about is the 41 Great Lakes, which you at River Raisin Ballistics came up with. Tell me what's the status, please.
Well, the commercial ammunition will be out probably in August, and it's by a company called Steinel Ammunition. And we have plans to release our own rifle. That'll be coming later on this year. And we're going to continue the project, developing new rounds. Right now we have 175 grain Bear Creek that's traveling 2,800 plus feet a second. We have a 200 grain Bear Creek HV that's traveling between 2,675 and 2,750. So we're getting solid 30-06 numbers out to 400 or 500 yards. It's really quite different from anything else that's existed to this point.
Did you know, John, when you were developing this, what you had, or is it surprising even you?
It is. It's surprising Larry and I, and it's surprising all the pro staff people. What we expected was 308 numbers out to about 300 yards. But as we've developed this, Bear Creek and Fury have developed projectiles specifically for us, and that's really given us a boost because some of these projectiles have BCs as high as .30 or 310, which is incredibly, incredibly high. We're testing two new cartridges right now, two new loads, 252 grain at 2,600 feet a second and a 272 grain at 2,400 feet a second.
One of the things I
So
forgot
it's
to
gone
mention.
way past anything I designed.
Well,
Yeah.
and one of the exciting things about this that I actually forgot to mention, this is a straight wall cartridge.
It is. Yeah, it is.
So
It's based off of a 30-06 case. Yeah.
Do you see this, John? Do you see this as actually a viable replacement for the 450 Bushmaster and the 350 Legend that are so popular these days?
I do, although we never really intended it to replace them. We just kind of thought it would fit nicely in the lineup. And because Larry and I still have 350s and 450s, and we still hunt with them.
Mm-hmm.
But the development of this has kind of taken over everything else, though. So
I don't think originally you guys were planning on producing your own 41 Great Lakes rifle, were you? Is this kind of a thing that came up because of the popularity?
That's the popularity, the growth popularity. We just thought, well, if we can do this, let's try and do it. And so we have the complete package. We have the rifles, and the price range is going to be between $1,000 and $1,300. So it's just over the quote unquote budget prices that people pay for standard rifles. And we're calling it a production custom because it's going to be produced at a level of about 100 units a month. And it'll have a Douglas custom barrel on it, a Timony trigger, and a custom bolt action. So,
well, you've created a lot of interest, John. So will you? Can we kind of stay in touch to let people know where this is at? Because I have people all the time reaching out to me and say, "What's the status of this?" So, congrats on the success, and let's stay in touch.
Well, I will. Thanks a lot, Mike. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, John Upp of River Raisin Ballistics. And thank you to John Sullivan for sending in this week's Ask Avery question. You can do the same. Send me an email to Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. That's Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. And as always, a big thank you to the folks at Security Credit Union for making each week's Ask Avery segment possible, and also for stepping up and becoming the top dog sponsor for the second annual Mike Avery Outdoors charity golf outing. You can sign up for that at mucc.org/golf, mucc.org/golf. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back in hour number 3, one of the longest working charter captains on the Great Lakes, it's Ed Retherford of Trout Scout Charters.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Yater Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, The Forward Corporation, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Hammond Drives and Equipment, Garber Chevrolet, the West Branch Visitors Bureau, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is Mike Avery, also known as the Big Guy, and this is the 3rd hour of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. And so glad to have you along with me as we continue this celebration of the outdoor lifestyle, talking about celebrating, encouraging, promoting, discussing the history and tradition of hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping and wildlife issues and conservation issues, even some wild game cooking. That's what this show is about. I am blessed that for 3 hours each week I can sit at this microphone and talk about these things. Talk with you, talk with experts around the state, have the chance to give my opinion occasionally, and I'm not real shy about doing that oftentimes. Sometimes it gets me in trouble, but that's okay. At this point in my career, I'm not trying to make people happy. I'm not trying to make friends. I'm trying to do what I think is right, and sometimes those positions are popular and sometimes they're not. But as I say, it is what it is. I've had the chance over the years, over these so many years, to talk with and get to know a lot of people. Ed Retherford is one of those folks. I've known Ed forever, and he is generally accepted as the longest working charter captain in Michigan, certainly one of. TroutScoutCharters.com is his website. He's on Northern Lake Huron. Northern Lake Huron has seen its share of changes over the years. The fishery, the people who have come and gone, the resources who have come and gone. But throughout it all, Ed's been there. He's been there. He's been viable. He's been successful. And he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line to talk about that and more, I suspect. Ed, welcome back. How have you been, my friend?
Good, Mike. Had a little rough winter, but we made it, both of us. So I'm here. We're both here to talk to each other. But yep. And I'm sitting right on Thunder Bay right now because I told Charlie I had to come out to where I at least had service because we're still in northern Michigan. So, and with media, you never know what's going to happen. Okay.
Well, I appreciate that. Sounds like we've got a good, strong cell. Are you looking at the water right now, Ed?
Oh yeah, I'm right behind the plant. I got 9 by 9 miles of Thunder Bay and a ship coming in, and I just had an eagle fly by. And I'm not even putting that on. I'm not even making that up. Okay.
So why are you not on the water right now? I guess that's my question.
Well, I had hip replacement, and I got an okay start a week ago. Where I did all the testing and everything. So I've been down, but we discussed prior a little bit. The weather's just been a killer with the winds, northeast, and of course the ice storm that we had. We some areas got it real bad. One of the areas that we owned didn't get it bad because it was near the water and it melted. But inland, the people, it's unbelievable the damage.
Yeah, for those of us downstate, I still don't think, unless we've been up there and visited, we can fully appreciate just how hard you guys got hit up there.
Yeah, I've never seen it, and I'm not a young guy, and it was just, unbelievable.
Yeah.
But I think we'll all make it.
And so the gist of my question is, you will be hitting the water soon here. This is how many years, Ed, will this be that you have been out there on the water?
Well, I started in '69 guiding. Then there was actually they made a guide association, and I started guiding for steelhead on the Asabo, and my background was actually steelhead and fly fishing and that to begin with, which a lot of people don't know. They think that I'm just a lake fisherman, but then. So it's 56 years counting the guide time and the actual licensing of the charters, because I don't even then they had licenses, but we didn't really know that they had licenses on the Great Lakes then. So.
Wow. The things you have seen and the things that have changed, crazy.
Yeah, unbelievable actually. I laugh because the kids, my kids are, and we've talked about this before. I grew up in the Thumb, and my family was all involved in hunting and fishing. My mother's side of the family, my dad's side of the family were farmers. But I grew up in, everybody doesn't think that I know about Lake Huron, but I actually fished in Port Huron and Port Austin and Marysville, and, when I was in the 5th and 6th grade, and actually my uncle built a break wall in Port Austin, and I lived there for a summer when I was in the 5th grade and fished off the dock for perch every morning. So,
You say one side of your family was fishermen, one side was farmers. I kind of think the two are related in some ways, because whether you're fishing or farming, number one, both are extremely weather related. Number two, you're relying on something you don't have any control over. It's like farming, you can only do so much, And then fishing, you can only do so much as well. There's a lot of faith involved in both, that things are going to come together and things are going to happen.
That's very correct. My dad always said, you can't play around with Mother Nature, because everybody, especially in the thumb, because we were outside. I grew up in Cass City, but we were D-Ford actually, but we were outside the farming area, as far as Saginaw belt. But you can't fool around with Mother Nature.
No. So Ed, how has that fishery, that northern Lake Huron fishery, how is that? I mean, the changes are obvious, right? But how, from your perspective, what's that journey been like?
Well, I'm a survivor, but it's been up and down. Of course, I started out actually fishing with wire line, and as far as the fishing, I started fishing wire line over on Lake Michigan for lake trout back when I graduated from college in '69, and then of course I lived in Alpena, so we came over here and we developed that technique a little bit. And then again, I was an avid steelhead fisherman, and then they planted the brown trout in Thunder Bay in the late '70s, and that boomed. I mean, we had a world-class fishery, and of course now that's been a has-been, and we're not going to go into that today. But you knew that I grew up. And I shouldn't say grew up, but I was actually right here, so I loved brown trout. I probably know quite a bit about them. And then I fished trout and salmon in the summer when you out on the lake, and now we promote a variety of fish. I mean, we can catch up to 7 different species on a trip. So.
Well, and I mean, obviously you have to promote whatever fishery or conditions or situation you have. But I think the fact that you have this multi-species fishery these days is kind of a unique niche, and I think it's smart to really put a positive spin on that, because some people could put a negative spin on it if they wanted to.
Correct, and they have, they've tried that. I mean, I battle that all the time, but I've seen a change. Actually, I've seen a change in the fish as far as the quality of the fish and what they're eating, and people poo-hoo it, but the people that poo-hoo it, don't really know what they're talking about. So it's just like any other thing on Facebook or multimedia. You got the negative people all the time.
Well, you don't have to have kings Chinook salmon to have a successful Great Lakes fishery. They're kind of the glory fish, but you can survive and have an enjoyable day on the water if you don't catch a king.
Oh, correct. I mean, the way they're planning now, actually, I think probably Lake Huron's got the right planning method, although there's a couple of things that I would change, and you probably would too if we talked it over. But with them planning coho and Atlantic salmon in different ports, and also keeping the steelhead plants, and they do plant some browns in some rivers that show up in the Great Lakes, and then our lake trout are totally different than the original strain of lake trout.
I want to talk. Listen, Ed, I got to take a break. When we come back, you've been on with me enough. You know how this works. I don't mean to be rude. I know it comes across as rude sometimes. People say, "Why do you cut your guests off?" Well, if I cut them off, it's because I probably did a bad job and I set them up with a question when I shouldn't have, because they don't have time to answer it. So I guess maybe I am being rude. But the way the situation works is there's a clock in here, and when it counts down to 0, I'm done. I'm going to a break. It doesn't matter if I'm still talking or not. So that's why it is the way it is. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Captain Ed Retherford of Trout Scout Charters, TroutScoutCharters.com. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Manistee on WMLQ, that's 97.7 FM. You can hear us down in St. Joe on WSJM, 94.9 FM. And you can hear us in Traverse City on WTCM 580 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine, this segment brought to you by Reeder Landscaping. Reeder can take care of your lawn and property because it's your nature and our nurture. Let them create an outdoor getaway in your backyard, as they have for me. 60 years in business, the folks at Reeder have been there. Do you know how hard it is to be in business and be successful and be a leader in a given field for 6 decades? They're doing something right. That's why I choose to partner with them, and that's why I let the guys come to my place. And actually, they do a lot of work. Whether it's fertilizing or pruning or we've had them done landscaping projects in the past as well. The one thing I don't want them to do is mow. Not that they don't do a good job. I just look at mowing as one small form of exercise. Reeder Landscaping, let them come to your property. They do a great job. Check them out online at reederlandscaping.com. That's reederlandscaping.com. Now, Ed Retherford, Captain Ed Retherford of Trout Scout Charters, has not been a licensed or working guide or captain for 60 years. Oh, no. Only 56 years. More than half a century, Ed, you've been out there on the water. That's just amazing to me. Congrats, buddy.
Well, thank you, Mike. We've talked about it before, and I'm proud of my family. The kids have sort of followed me. I don't know if the wife's sort of proud of that, but the kids I have 2 boys and a daughter, and they're all avid outdoors people. So that's been great. So she's a company musician, so it was frowned upon, but the kids at least have some music background. I have none.
I'm with you there. I have none either. Hey, we were talking before the break about how the northern Lake Huron fishery has changed. And you were talking about lake trout. Lake trout used to be talked about greasers and slime balls. And, boy, they're a different fish these days, aren't they?
Correct. We can almost, not when we catch them, but when we fillet them, we can almost tell what their diet's been. One of the good things of gobies is that they've actually changed the structure of the muscle tissue or in the lake trout to where the species now, because we've got so much natural reproduction up here in our area compared to some of the other areas on the Great Lakes because of our reefs, the meat, when you fillet them, the meat you can almost pass them off as salmon, okay, as far as the color and the coloration and that. So, and if in the spring, if they're eating smelt, you can tell that because there is a greasy look to it. But after the smelt move out, which there's not that many anymore, it's by far better than it used to be, the meat on the fish. So, and then, like I said, go ahead.
Well, and you were talking about brown trout earlier. That's how I got to know you, Ed, as the brown trout king of northern Lake Huron. Do you have any brown fishing at all anymore?
We do. It's very minimal. I can't run trips on it. We plant. There's a group that plants through a hatchery that's not state affiliated, that they've allowed them because they've been tested and everything. So they do put browns in here, but not to where I can run trips. I catch them. I've won the brown trout in modern times in the last 5 or 6 years. I've come back and fished browns and won the tournament. But as far as having people come and actually fish for them, it's like my kids say, it's like watching paint dry. So
yeah,
it's not there anymore. I mean, it was. People don't realize how good it was, in a lot of the fisheries. I mean, it's everywhere, not just here. I'm sure, off the thumb, people will say the same thing. And the kings, out of Oscoda back in the day when they put all those kings in Oscoda. It was unbelievable the number of boats that were there doing that. So.
What about the Atlantics? A lot of people had high hopes for the Atlantics, but and I still do. I think they're a pretty interesting and exciting fish.
They are. Actually, I'm laughing because right now we've got the midge hatch up here. I guess everybody's got different ideas what the insects are, but they're swarming. Actually, where I'm parked right now, I couldn't even get outside because they'd be swarming on me. But this from about the end of May till about the 20th or 25th of June, in Thunder Bay, anywhere from 20 to 50 feet of water, the Atlantics, or even shallower, but the Atlantics, they are a viable fish. I mean, it's another thing where you're not going to catch a bunch of them, but I had a gentleman that drive all the way from North Carolina last year that was doing taxidermy on every species of fish, that's freshwater fish that he could, and he booked me for 3 days of Atlantic fishing, and I go, man, you're really putting the heat on me. And I mean, this is almost too good to be true, but about the last hour of our trip, we were off Presqu'île out in 80 feet of water, and I fish hit and it jumped. And I go, Tommy, I think we just made your day. and he goes, what? I go, we got Atlantic salmon coming to the back of the boat, because I could tell by the head what it was already. I could see the spots. So I said, just don't blow it on me, okay? I didn't want him to get too excited. But,
did he land it?
And that's a true. And that was a true story. And he hugged me and he goes, you just made my week in Michigan. He goes, and I said, this actually is going to go in a chapter of my book, Tommy. So I've been sitting down writing a little bit. I'm a biologist, but the kids just sort of roll their eyes. But I got a ghostwriter that rode with me in college, so hopefully he's gonna fine tune it if I ever get the ambition to do all of it. So.
Oh, that would be interesting. I would like that. Hey, Ed, in your years on the water there, and you look at the fishery, the overall Great Lakes fishery, do you ever, and maybe this is going to put you in a tough spot, and if so, I apologize, but do you ever feel resentment towards the resources that have been directed by the state and others to Lake Michigan at the expense of Lake Huron?
Oh, sure. I'm on the lake again. Mike, I'm charter members of everything. I was charter member of the Lake Huron Advisory. I mean, we're not going to go into that, but how it got started was basically because of 2 or 3 of us, and and we always battle that. And now I see they're planting browns at Ludington, and we had a planning. Oh, it's probably 8 or 9 years ago that the DNR gave us, and they set the guidelines so that we couldn't reach the guidelines, and therefore we never got any browns again, because there wasn't any way that in that paper that we could have reached the catch rate or anything else that they had put down. And of course I argued that, but of course it went to deaf ears.
Well, how did this all come about? How did Lake Michigan become the honey hole for salmon, and northern Lake Huron kind of got ignored in some ways? What's the backstory here, Ed?
Well, it was the travel bureaus, the Chamber of Commerce's and the people, and there wasn't enough of us to organize and get the chambers to realize how important fishing was at the time. They didn't realize. MSU did studies, and MUCC did studies, and we showed them, how much people were bringing into our community, but it fell on deaf ears in the communities over here. I don't think they realized how many people were actually coming, because they were industrial communities. Which you can't blame them. That was a setup. And Lake Michigan was more of a tourist area, and that's the route they went. and they did a good job at it.
Yeah. Well, resources and money tend to follow people. So when you got people going to an area, that's what gets that's what's going to get the attention of the state. I see that. That makes sense. Ed, as you go out, as you prepare to start your 56th season out there, what is your summer looks like? What are you going to start targeting first? How are you going to set things up? All that good stuff.
Well, I my boat's not in the water yet because I didn't, I didn't know what was going to happen.
Right.
So I've used other captains that are licensed captains, and I've used other captains, and I've gone. They're kids that actually have fished with me over the years in tournaments or whatever. I mean, I've had all sorts of kids that have gone on. I've got all sorts of kids that are not my kids, but I call them my kids, that are captains on Lake Michigan that a lot of people don't know actually started on Lake Huron. So, but what I look at it now, it's set up. Right now, we're looking at Atlantic salmon, steelhead, walleyes, and lake trout right now. Coho and kings haven't really moved up here, but like last weekend, some of the guys who were fishing in that shallow water for whatever would bite, hit like one king or two kings, So there's some kings moving around. They usually start in the southern part of the lake and move up here. And then the ones that are planted at Rogers City either go over to Lake Michigan or they come south. So we get them when they come back. Last year was terrible because right when they were coming back, we had terrible winds and got warm water, and they came back down the Canadian side and then back around up to, Rogers and Mackinac.
Listen, Ed, you have a good summer. You have a good season. I would encourage people, if they want to book a trip with one of the grandfather of Northern Lake Huron fishing, Ed Retherford of Trout Scout Charters, go to the website troutscoutcharters.com. That's troutscoutcharters.com. You can book a trip with Ed. Ed, good fishing to you, and we will talk again. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, a few more things I want to shoot the breeze about. And then we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. Speaking of shooting the breeze, Dave does not have a recipe this week. He said, Mike, can we just shoot the breeze? Well, yeah, we can shoot the breeze. 3 hours of shooting the breeze about the outdoors. That's what the Outdoor Magazine show sometimes is about. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Taos on WIOS. It's 1480 AM, 106.9 FM. You can hear us twice each weekend in Taos. You can also hear us twice each weekend in Saginaw on WSGW AM and FM, 790 AM, 100.5 FM. I'm in the studios right now at WSGW. Although during this 3 hours, there is not a deer head behind me yet, and there is not a fish behind me yet. I should do that. Charlie, I should do that. That would drive young Jonathan crazy. Maybe I should do that. Anyway, it's I'm here in the studios of WSGW. I have a very good relationship with the folks here. In fact, I'm in here right now with Charlie Rude. Charlie, it's a beautiful... No, yeah, see, you know where I'm going with this. It's a beautiful day, and people are already lining up. Now, we're not quite done yet. It'll be 20 minutes before Charlie has a chance to get out there and say hi to all of his fans, but they are out there. In fact, it's warm enough now. I see families. I see babies. They got signs. They're chanting, Charlie, Charlie. People just love you, Charlie. Just love you, Charlie. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Hammond Drives and Equipment. Are you a farmer, a contractor, a landscaper, a maintenance supervisor? Anyone who needs hydraulic hoses and fittings, well, Hammond Drives and Equipment can help you out. They've got more than 30 years of experience in business. They have a warehouse full of hoses and fittings and elbows, adapters, and more for air, water, chemical, petroleum, hydraulic. I love their slogan. They say, if you need something to keep your business in business, we have it at Hammond. Check them out online at hammondeqp.com, hammondeqp.com, or give them a call at 989-695-2239. Hammond Drives and Equipment. Okay, a few more things I want to talk about. This weekend, as you are hearing the show, depending on when you are listening to the show, your turkey season may or may not be over, right? But it's getting right down to the end of it. So if you still have a turkey tag in your pocket and you're listening on Saturday, there's still a chance you can get out and get your bird. If you want to apply for a Michigan bear or elk application, you've got this weekend, but don't let the weekend get away from you because then it'll be too late. Every year I hear from people who say, oh, I was going to do that, but I forgot. You had a whole month to do it. I personally took a big step, and I applied for a bull-only elk tag, knowing full well that I will not get a bull-only elk tag. At least not through the standard application period. My bull elk tag is going to come when I win the Pure Michigan Hunt, which will be any year now. It's going to happen. I put in for a point only for the Michigan Bear tag, Michigan Bear drawing. And I did that because I did get a bear tag last year. I hunted with Johnny Bowler, the Bear Whisperer, and shot my first Michigan black bear. I'm going to take a year off there to accrue another point, but I'm going to go to Ontario. Charlie, by the way, our August schedule will be screwed up because I'm going to Ontario in August on a bear hunt. Okay. He's like, what are you talking about? It's too early to worry about that. No, just giving you a heads up, Charlie. I'm going to go to Ontario for a bear hunt in August. Hunt with Ron St. Louis of Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters. So, but I let's see. I strategically did that as far as timing, right? So the second annual Mike Avery Outdoors charity golf outing is the last Friday in July. I didn't want to put it into August because I didn't want to interfere with my Ontario bear hunt. So things on your calendar. Friday, July 25th, second annual Mike Avery Outdoors charity golf outing to benefit MUCC's youth camp to get kids involved in the outdoors. So we're going to play 18 holes of golf, which is going to be fun. It's going to be a riot. We're going to raise money for a good cause, for a great cause, getting kids involved in the outdoors. I'm really excited about this year's event. Security Credit Union came on board as a top dog level sponsor. So we've got good seed money going into this year. We're going to make some good money this year to get kids involved in the outdoors. If you would like to join us, and you don't have to be a scratch golfer. Last year I said, look, if you just want to play golf, maybe drink a beer and smoke a cigar, well, guess what? This year the cigars are out for me. And I've been playing golf this spring, and it's like I can't play golf without a cigar in my mouth, but I'm doing it, okay? So play golf, have fun, raise money for a good cause. Go to mucc.org/golf. mucc.org/golf to sign up. You still have some time, but really, don't wait, right? We're going to fill up. We know we're going to fill up this year, so make sure you get a chance to get involved. mucc.org/golf. The other thing I'm working on that is a charity project is I'm working with Chris Durson at Rapid River Knives. We are doing a Mike Avery Signature Edition knife. It is a Uper pocket clip. It'll be one of a kind. A blood red acrylic and burl maple or maple burl handle. The blade will have my signature on it, and the proceeds from this knife are going to a group called Outdoor Driven. Outdoor Driven takes vets and first responders into the outdoors on outdoor adventures to help them deal with some of the things that they've had to deal with in the past and do on a daily basis. So I don't have any more details on that, except Chris told me they were pouring the acrylic yesterday, so I should get a feel for what the color looks like. We're trying to get this just right. Details as we get closer. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Miner. No recipe this week, so we will shoot the breeze with Dixie Dave. That's coming up after the break. My name is Mike Avery. This show is called Outdoor Magazine. My website is MikeAveryOutdoors.com, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and my email address, it's an easy one, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. I do certainly appreciate your time. There are a lot of different things vying for your time and your attention these days. Media sources, family obligations, business obligations. And the fact that you are hearing my voice right now, whether the broadcast version or the podcast, and I always say if you can, I really believe the best way to listen to this show is on your local radio station, if you possibly can. But the podcast version is available out there if you can't. But regardless of how you are hearing my voice or when, thank you. Thank you. I do certainly appreciate it. Been doing this a long time. And God willing, and when I say God willing, I mean, I truly mean that. If God decides that this is the course that I should take, I will continue to do this for as long as I possibly can. Now, maybe he has other plans, and that's okay too. But, I've been doing this for a long time. I hope to continue doing it for a long time. And over the years, I've developed just some wonderful friendships, business relationships and personal friendships as well. And I'm thinking right now of wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. Early on in the history of the television show, I was introduced to Dave, Dixie Dave, who was at the old Dixie Inn on Dixie Highway in Birch Run. And the guy is just a master chef. He's just a genius when it comes to fishing wild game. So it was a very strong and just made sense to partner with Dave. He's always been very generous with his time. And we continued to work together throughout the entire history of the TV show. Then the TV show went away. It's like, okay, well, what happens with me and Dave? Well, nothing. We just continue on because people love Dave. They love his recipes, and they love to hear from him. And this week is no exception, and he's with us once again. David, welcome back, buddy. How are you?
I'm very fine. And yourself?
I'm doing really good. I'm glad to see that it appears maybe that the weather pattern has changed a little bit. Maybe we're going to get away from some of these northeast winds and get into a little bit more of a comfortable and southwest wind or southwest winds pattern.
Well, I tell you what, in Standish, it's been windy. I don't ever remember being a kid that had this kind of wind.
And northeast wind and chilly. I mean, we've been to softball games the last couple of weeks wearing winter coats, all bundled up and hunkered down. But I think things may be starting to change, David.
I hope so. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Hey, listen, I know we don't want to do a recipe this week, but can we talk a little bit about you, Dixie Dave? I mean, we did this a few weeks ago, talking about how you got into cooking. But let's talk about cooking fish and wild game in general. I guess wild game in particular. How different is the mindset of cooking up wild game as opposed to a domestic meat?
A lot of people in their own home kitchen are kind of intimidated by venison or elk or some of the other fish, maybe like walleye or salmon. And just, look it up online and it'll give you good recipes. And then don't be so shy about trying to experiment and do something different for your family, It's their taste is appreciated.
You mentioned intimidating. I think that is a big factor, the intimidation factor of cooking up wild game. Do you approach it like you would cook a domestic animal, or is it a different mindset, process, tactics, techniques, or whatever?
Well, wild game has no saturated or no fat in the meat. It's just a little bit on the outside, so it's going to be a lot drier, whether it's goose breast or elk or venison. So you got to try to maybe more liquid cooking, cook it in a sauce would work out real good. And
not cook it as long? Not cook it as...
Well, certain things you're going to cook till they're falling off the bone or for purposes of tenderness. But say if you're going to have a steak like elk steak or a goose steak, you want to cook that quite rare so you don't dry it out. The more you cook that kind of meat, the more leather-like it becomes.
And I've learned this from you, whether it's fish or a game, that things will continue to cook after you take them off the fire, off the heat.
Oh, absolutely. Yep, absolutely. If you got something in a fry pan and you set it on your plate, it's still going to cook for just a minute or two longer, so it's going to get a little more well done than you might have anticipated.
just little things to keep in mind and keep aware of. And David, we can do a recipe next week, right?
Yep.
What do you
No
got?
problem.
What do you got in mind? What do you think?
I was going to do one more trout recipe and then go into like walleye and salmon.
I think that'll be perfect. I will look forward to that, David. And a quick reminder, and I should get paid for this, and I don't. You are now, that's a joke, you're now cooking at the King's Dish in Standish, right? So people can still see you there.
Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I had 3 tables that I went out and spoke with over the last weekend, and every one of them listened to your radio show.
All right, then he is going to get a bill. He is going to get a bill from me this week. All right, we'll look forward to
Okay.
All right, David, we'll talk to you next week, buddy.
All right, thank you.
Wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar, a big part of the Outdoor Magazine show. Listen, we went to the old Dixie Inn all the time. We went to Oscar and Joey's all the time. I have yet to go to the King's Dish to see Dave, but we will be there because if Dave is cooking, I'm going to be eating. All right, my friends, thanks for joining me on this edition of the Outdoor Magazine show. Again, my name is Mike Avery. The website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and the email address is Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Don't hesitate to reach out. I would love to hear from you. Let me know what's on your mind. Let me see your pictures and your videos. Share your outdoor experiences with me and the world at Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com.